On today's episode of Will It Adventure, we dive into the pros and cons of the Toyota Tundra Gen 2 platform.
We'll cover speeds and feeds, reliability data, our favorite mods, and then at the end of the video, we will reveal our Will It Adventure scores. Will It Adventure is a new series produced by Outdoor Auto where we deep dive into specific automotive platforms to see if they make good adventure rigs. If you have a platform you want to see on an episode, make sure to put it in the comments and subscribe for future episodes. If you're new here, my name is Nathan Mueller. Welcome to Outdoor Auto. The entire goal of this channel is just to help automotive enthusiasts get out and explore the great outdoors. Thanks for stopping by.
Speeds and feeds can get pretty boring, so I'm going to throw them up on the screen for you, and we're going to cover a few of the highlights.
The main thing to know about the second gen Tundra is that it wasn't fancy, but it worked really, really well. Both the 4.7 and 5.7 liter V8 engines have surpassed 1 million miles multiple times. The transmissions seem to be bulletproof. The 5.7 has plenty of power for towing, and if you were lucky enough to get the optional TRD supercharger, you could do 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, which is significantly faster than a Raptor.
Truck guys will tell you, taking off from a dead stop with 10,000 pounds ain't no picnic. So this half-ton's got the most torque. 6-speed tranny with tow haul mode. And 4 oversized disc brakes. Because stopping 10,000 pounds ain't no picnic either.
The interior showcased a roomy utilitarian design that was crafted for blue-collar workers, but there were no lockers, there were no frills, but almost nothing would break.
The second gen Tundra has not really suffered from very many reliability issues. There are a few notable recalls that people will reference a lot. One had to do with frames that were rusting. In 2009, there was a recall on a cross member that would rust out periodically, and then that rust would of course spread to the rest of the frame. They did change the manufacturing process to account for that, and that problem went away. There was a couple power steering recalls that ended up not being a big deal. The scariest sounding recall on the second gen Tundra was for a camshaft that hadn't hardened properly in the manufacturing process, but that actually only affected 20 trucks. So while it was scary sounding, it was definitely not widespread. What's that? You want to talk about the third gen Tundra? I don't think that's a good idea right now. Toyota Tundra was the most made in America full-size truck in the United States, which is kind of interesting when it's up against, you know, classics like Ford or GMC. The Gen 2 Tundra was the only full-size truck so far to ever get the Consumer Reports above average reliability rating. It's okay, buddy. I still love you. Whew. When you want to talk about reliability, here's a crazy stat for you. There are 44% more Tundras on the road that have over 200,000 miles than F-150s. Now, the craziest part of that stat is there are way more F-150s in the United States than there are Tundras. So it's not even a fair comparison, and it's still winning. The Gen 2 Tundra also has the best resale of any full-size truck award from Kelley Blue Book. Okay, so the Gen 2 Tundra is obviously a pretty reliable vehicle, but let's say you're taking it on the trail and you're beating it up extra hard. Let's say you decide to rock land this thing or rock crawl it. At that point, what are you gonna break? There's a few things that stand out after miles and miles of testing and doing multiple builds on Tundras. The first thing that I will tell you that you're gonna break if you get a little too crazy with these things is something called the cam tabs. The cam tabs are these little pieces of metal that bump out on the side of your lower control arms where you set your alignment. Now, if you go take this off-road, and especially the way a lot of off-roaders overland their vehicles and overload their vehicles with too much weight, and you're beating this through some really rough terrain, there's a decent chance that you will bend those cam tabs or even shear them straight off. And then if you do that, it can be very hard to actually get your vehicle to align properly. So you may have to look into aftermarket cam tabs that can be welded on. It's an entire kit. It makes it a lot stronger. It works really well. I have had to do that modification on this truck. A second modification that you will definitely want to do if you're gonna off-road in any type of rough terrain is ABS sensor guards. On the inside of where your rotor is, attached to your spindle, your ABS sensors plug in right there. And they are very, very exposed. So when you're off-roading and there's like rocky soil, like if a rock no bigger than this can bounce up on the inside and just shear your ABS sensor right off. One thing with the Tundra that I do like to remind people is these things have really big gas tanks. And the fuel tank is a little bit exposed. You have cross members that kind of protect a lot of things underneath the vehicle, but your gas tank is only protected by a plastic skid plate. And if you do not have rock rails on the side of your Tundra and you drop the side of your Tundra down on a rock, you will basically be sliding on the fuel tank on one side of your vehicle. And you will have the potential of actually puncturing that and getting a hole in it. Okay, this last one is not unique to the Tundra. It's unique to any vehicle that has independent front suspension. On an IFS system, engineers design certain weak points into the system so you break things that are easier to replace rather than things that are really expensive to replace. You'll see this a lot of times with your steering components where your tie rods are specifically made to break at a certain point rather than destroying your whole entire steering box. Same thing goes with your CV axles on a Tundra. The Tundra, you want your CV axle to break before you blow up your whole entire transfer case. So CV axles will always be a weak point on off-road machines, and it's kind of intended to be that way. There's a decent chance that at some point in your life, you might break a CV axle. So it may be a good idea to A, know how to replace one roadside, and B, have the spare parts with you if you intend on taking a Tundra into really, really crazy situations. Okay, so let's talk the pros and cons of the Tundra itself as an outdoor adventure platform. It's a full-size truck. That inherently is going to make a few things harder for it than, say, Tacomas and 4Runners and Rangers and smaller vehicles like Jeeps that have smaller wheelbases. So already, some of the most extreme of the extreme rock crawling type activities are going to be a bigger challenge for the Tundra, just simply because it has a longer wheelbase and it is a pretty wide truck. So there's certain trails out there that are that I would consider even overlanding trails, not even technical trails as far as rocks and boulders, but they could become a technical trail in this vehicle due to how wide it is and how long it is. So if you're gonna go run a bunch of Jeep trails with a Tundra, one of the cons is you can expect to get a lot of pinstriping. It's gonna get scratched up a lot because most of the bushes and plants on the side of the road haven't been pushed out that far. Another thing with being a full-size truck is it is a gas hog. It has a V8 engine in it. It's made for towing, so it doesn't get great gas mileage. By the time that I do all of these upgrades on mine on a mixed trip where I'm going on freeways, off-road, dirt trails, and a little bit of town driving, I'm usually averaging at best in that 12 to 14 miles per gallon range, and sometimes a lot worse than that. When it comes to the gizmos and fancy interiors, obviously the Tundra doesn't have it. It's very utilitarian, so most of the gizmos aren't there. You know, the sound system could get a square, 5 out of 10, a very non-extraordinary score. Same thing with your infotainment and things like that. Some of it's dated, but the platform itself is dated. It came out in 2007. So a lot of that is to be expected. There are some weird things, like for example, underneath the seats, there's a huge thick layer of foam that they could have actually given you extra storage, but they didn't. And then there's even storage behind your seats in the rear, but there's no way for the seat to fold down to really access it.
Have you ever wanted to add a second battery to your Tundra? Finding room under the hood is super tight. Even when people do, they usually don't properly brace it for an off-road vehicle application. Quick trick, you can actually fit a second battery under the rear seat and your controller right behind it on the cab wall. You will need to cut away a bit of the foam to make room and make sure you have a non-spillable battery that's approved to mount on its side. I use the Odyssey AGM battery and it works great for this. The easiest way to wire this is through the back of the
cab. In order to do this, you do generally need to remove your bed. I recommend planning out your whole entire build and doing all the wiring that you can while your bed is actually removed. Aftermarket support is kind of a big deal if you want to build an adventure rig. Now, the second gen Tundra was out for so many years that they actually have pretty good third-party support out there. There's lots of accessories that you can get. Of course, there's not as many accessories as Jeep, for example, but the Tundra is pretty well taken care of. So here are a few of my favorite upgrades. A high clearance front bumper. It's gonna help you with better approach angle. You can add a winch to it. I don't recommend putting a light bar in it because you wanna be able to have this access to get to your winch controls, power buttons, things like that. This one's made by C4. Addicted Desert Designs makes great ones. CBI makes them. There's tons of aftermarket support for great high clearance front bumpers. A suspension lift. But not this one, unless you like lighting money on fire. What I would recommend for the Tundra, especially if you're in the overland and maybe basic rock landing category, is an Old Man Emu BP51 suspension kit. It comes in a kit, it has leaf springs for the rear. Do yourself a favor and get the heavy duty ones because you're gonna end up overloading your truck, everyone does. So it'll have shocks with remote reservoirs for the front. It'll have shocks for the rear. They'll also have remote reservoirs as well as leaf springs. The beautiful thing about that kit is it costs about the same as an entry-level Icon kit or Fox kit. But the thing is, it has far more performance. You have to understand that the Old Man Emu BP51 kit is actually an internal bypass shock. So you actually have bypasses that can help you tune the shock. You can tune both the rebound and compression. For the money, it's about the best kit that you can get in a Tundra and still be at a reasonable price point. A rear bumper, actually just kidding. You don't need that till way later on. You just end up dragging your hitch on everything that you go over because the back of this is so long.
That way just a hair, laugh out of the way. There you go.
Oh my God. That's so sick. I'm going this way.
You're good. You're good. Yeah.
Well, it's a full-size truck. What can you do? Personally, I think rock sliders should be your first upgrade. With a long center where you're prone to drag things, this is actually where you have, I think, the highest likelihood of doing body damage to your vehicle. Get rock sliders, your doors will thank me. That actually spells door right where I tapped. That wasn't on purpose. That was pure luck. Okay, I know I said do rock sliders first, but actually before that, you should do tires. Tires can improve your ride quality and your grip better than just about anything else that you can do. On a Tundra, if you're gonna do a 2.5 inch to 3 inch lift, that means you can fit about a 34.5 inch tire without rubbing, as long as you're also pairing that with about a 0mm offset rim. So that means if you're gonna upgrade your really big tires, you're also going to have to move away from your factory rims because they are inset and the inside of this tire will rub on all kinds of stuff that used to exist here, but I cut it out because I put 37s. I don't recommend going to 37s. If you're gonna go to 37s, people ask me, well, how much modifications do you have to do? And you pretty much just have to cut everything, pretty much everything, and relocate things and cut more things and then cut more things and then cut more things. So 34.5 inch tires, Falken makes some really great tires around that size. KO3s, the new BFG KO3s are awesome. There's a lot of different companies making really great aggressive all-terrains. Don't get mudders. This thing already has bad enough gas mileage. You don't need mudders. Get a good set of all-terrain tires. Couple other things that people don't really notice until they've actually driven one of these on really challenging trails is that the Tundra comes with a really impressive traction control system. They don't really talk about it very much. I've taken this off-roading with a bunch of Jeepers, and when we were on trails, they were swearing that I had lockers because the traction control was being smart enough to not spin tires, and it just looked like it was working. It was maintaining traction very, very well. So it has a fantastic traction control system despite the fact that it does not have lockers. The V8 comes with a ton of power, So you kind of have all the power that you want from this platform, which is awesome. And then paired with that transmission, the ability to switch the transmission over into manual mode and control your gearing allows you a lot of control when you're off-roading or even minor rock crawling, to be able to downshift into that first gear and 4 low and have a ton of control over the vehicle, even though the vehicle is so big. So the gearing ratios on this truck actually work really, really well. A couple other quick hits. You have enough room for a spare 35 underneath the back. You will have to modify it ever so slightly, but it's pretty amazing to be able to fit a full-size spare 35. The interior of the Tundra is super roomy. If you're gonna get this as a family off-roading vehicle, you have tons of room for the family. Another super cool bonus is the entire rear window will roll down. I have no idea why no other manufacturers really out there are doing this. Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for, the Will It Adventure scores. It'll be judged on 5 categories that will include general population camping, overlanding, rock landing, rock crawling, and of course, high-speed desert. Each one of those categories is gonna get a 1 to 5 score. 1 would be the danger zone, 2 would be discomfort zone, 3 is gonna be fine, it's fine, 4, certified good enough, and a perfect 5 score is a send it score.
First up, Gen Pop Camping. It'll get you there for sure with all your gear and all your kids, but you might have to sell one along the way to pay for gas. So for that reason, we're giving it a certified good enough score. Overlanding requires a ton of miles on a ton of terrain, carrying a ton of weight. No full-size truck on the road is more reliable than the Second Gen Tundra, so it gets a rare send it score in this category. If you overland and you're worried about gas prices, you're in the wrong sport. For rock landing, sure, it's dimensionally challenged, but just like Fat Guy in a Little Coat, Chris Farley proved it could be done, so we give it a fine, it's fine score. For the category of rock crawling, we simply ask one question: can you fit a square peg through a round hole? Absolutely, you just have to smash it a bunch. So the Tundra gets a danger zone score for this category. So you want to go fast in the desert. Well, the Tundra's already taken first in the full stock class of the Baja 1000s. Its length in this category smooths out those bumps, and that V8, it just wants to party. So we say, send it.
If you like this video, make sure to let us know in the comments and on the like button. This video was a ton of work, but we'd like to make a lot of these covering a lot of platforms with everything from Jeeps to crazy Model Ts. There's a Model T I want to do a story on that you would not believe all the places that it's been. But anyhow, if you want more of these videos, make sure to let us know because they are so much work to make. We are willing to make them, but we don't want to make them if you don't want to watch them. So let us know in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe, share with your friends, help us out.